Hello and welcome to the Gooner Tool, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, and specifically the 8 a.m. Arsenal transfer show. I hope you're doing good. I hope you are well. You can see the recovery of my voice is glorious. It's finally back to its usual perky self, which is great to have. And no, I'm not going to be coughing and spluttering and struggling to get the words out through these shows is a welcome return. And it's good because there is a lot of content for you guys on the channel at the moment. There's a lot of my face embezzling your screens, right? Embezzling. Are we really using the word embezzling? That's the wrong word. Filling your screens may have been better. Embezzling. Wow. What is my 8 a.m. brain talking about? We've got obviously 3 shows for you. Yesterday that came out, we had the 8 a.m. transfer show. I then had a good chat with Harry Symeou on the Canton and Symeou show. Make sure you go and check that out. Really good discussion around the manager. And then a little bit later on in the evening, I was joined by Dan and Lewis and Christopher Fung, who returned after a long absence of his membership because he's been very busy in the preview show as well ahead of Southampton on Saturday. And today, in addition to this show, a little bit later on this morning, 11 a.m., so in 3 hours' time, I'll be joined by James from AFTV to have a chat again more about the managerial situation, where we go from here, getting his perspective on a lot of things. I know he's had a lot to say recently about that over on their channel. And then a little bit later on this evening, I'll be talking to Kev from Next Generation Arsenal to talk about the issues that the Arsenal youth side have faced of late and how their title challenge has stumbled a bit, is probably the words that we would use to describe their situation. Good morning to everybody in the chat box. Good morning to Kaiser, to Jonathan, to Mike, to Maicon joining us. Maicon, imagine that. Great goal in the World Cup, by the way. Amazing finish from that tight angle. How did you get it in? Cole, Matt G, Adam, John T, MCPE, Anukrit, Tony, Daniel, Robert. We've got Gigster, we've got George, we've got the Robots Will Eat You, Grant, Nikolai. We've got Philip, we've got Paul, we've got AV, Luke, Rich, we've got Mr. Ginger Gooner. So many of you. It's not a black t-shirt. This is green. This is khaki, as it would be described. It is not black. Okay, I'm finally not wearing something black. So let's appreciate that I do have a broader range of colors in my wardrobe, but yes, not a black. It's a khaki jumper. Can we see khaki? There we go. Thank you very much. Anyway, let's crack on today's news, and we start off, of course, by sending you all the way through to the Arsenal way. They will be doing yet another Arsenal agenda show at 9:30 this morning. You've had some really good content put out for you guys this week. They did a transfer insight show talking all about Dominic Calvert-Lewin that you should be, of course, checking out. The Arsenal analysis of the game against Everton with David Hughes, who is an Everton fan, who I unfortunately wasn't working this week, so I couldn't join David, but Bailey did a brilliant job having a chat with David about things. And to be honest, I was quite glad that I wasn't there to see David's smug face. But they've been doing the Arsenal agenda show all week. Even I popped on the other day as well. And Chris Wheatley joined Bailey as well on the channel. So make sure that you are checking out all the content over there. Link is in the description. Let's crack on though with today's news, and we start with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, Charles Watts talking on his channel. If you aren't subscribed to Charles Watts' channel, make sure you do. He came on the show very kindly recently, and we had a good chat, which is on our Let's Talk Arsenal fan series. But on his show, explains how Calvert-Lewin, and he feels that Calvert-Lewin would be open to a move and be looking possibly to move. And he has recently changed his agent, has Calvert-Lewin as well. And we know Arsenal have a genuine interest in the player. We know that a number of reports surfaced after the Everton defeat, after the Manchester United defeat, all around Arsenal's supposed interest in the player. £60 million has continued to be the figure that's been touted. I feel like that they would ask for at least that, possibly more. It's a long-term contract until at least, I think, 2024, 2025. So I would be thinking you're looking upwards of maybe around the £70 million figure for an English homegrown striker that's, a consistent scorer of goals for Everton. Will they move for him? We will have to wait and see. Speaking of strikers, though, following Balogun has been spoken about by Per Mertesacker, recently saying, I think the closest at the moment to make that step is Flo Balogun. Speaking specifically about kind of the youngsters that Arsenal should keep an eye on. He's transferred into the first team dressing room. He still plays for the 23s football and probably most likely will go on loan in January because you need extra exposure to get to that next level. So he needs to make that first transition. Now, I would argue that first transition should be with the first team this weekend. In the preview show, I said absolutely Balogun should be being integrated into the Arsenal first team. He's our most consistent striker, be it for the under-23s. I don't care. He's finishing his chances, and that is what I want to see in the Arsenal first team. So why on earth would we go anywhere else? Get him into the first team, get him scoring, get him playing, get him exposure as it's described. I'd like him to see the exposure in the first team and scoring goals for the Arsenal. Our penultimate, and yes, only a penultimate, there's only a few stories for us to discuss today, and that is that Jonathan David, the Lille Canadian striker, price tag has been revealed by French media, who claim that Lille will be asking for a figure in the region of £47 million to sign the Canadian striker. He's having a fantastic season, continuing on from his good work last season. Jonathan David, I know that a lot of people in our chat boxes are very, very keen on him to be the player that the Gunners move for. Still only 21 years of age, still scoring regularly in the French side. Does that mean that he could translate to the Premier League? It is obvious that we wouldn't know until it happens, but there's suggestions that he certainly could with the way in which he plays his game. He's a clinical finisher. He's fast. He doesn't lose out in physical battles. He's certainly someone that if the links continue, we will be covering in a lot more detail in regards to a tactical breakdown, I assure you. But until then, £47 million is said to be the figure, of which I think when you consider, if you're going to spend £47 million on Jonathan David, which I think there is an associated risk attached to, is it worth going that 13 million more to go for a Dominic Calvert-Lewin? Or is it worth going 18 plus million pounds more to go and get Dusan Vlahovic? Because the latest information coming out of Italy, Corriere Fiorentina, are saying that Arsenal supposedly have an offer ready at 65.8 million that are looking, which translate around the 80 million euro figure. 65.5 million pound offer Arsenal have ready, and they want to convince Dusan Vlahovic to change his mind about the club. Continually, we see these links. Continually, we see the rebuttals from the Italian journalists like Di Marzio saying, and Fabrizio Romano, of course, saying that he has no interest in Arsenal. He doesn't want to join Arsenal, and yet these links will not go away, suggesting that Vlahovic should be convinced to join the club. Look, if we ended up getting up this guy, it would be a massive coup for the club. Don't get that wrong. It would be a huge, huge piece of business for Arsenal to sign one of Europe's most exciting young strikers. But if he doesn't want to be here, is there any reason as to why we should genuinely go for him? I'll let you guys make your mind up. Speaking of people that do, though, want to be here, you guys in the chat box, if you could now throw your questions into that chat box, into that type part there, we will go through as many of them as feasibly possible as you join us after this brief interlude. Okay, then, let's go through the chat box questions and see how many we can get to. IGK says I love that. I can tell, by the way, when people type out their comments in the chat box and wait, and they're hovering over the enter bar. They're going, "Oh, right, when's he going to say Q&A? When's he going to..." Now, and I can tell when you do it. And IGK, I get the feeling that you are one of those people. 2 games ago, everything was good, looking good for top 4. Bounce back from Liverpool 2 games later, and it's a crisis. Are Arsenal the only club not allowed to lose a game they should win? Was everything good 2 games ago? And this is something that myself and Harry talked about yesterday. It's something that I'm going to talk to James about a little bit later on this morning. Is yes, the position in the table was good. 1 point off top 4. Hunky-dory. Happy days. Issue is that over the course of the period of games in which we got ourselves to that position, is that there were concerns throughout those games. The issues in chance creation, the diminishing defensive stability that's led us to concede 9 goals in our last 4 matches. These things have combined, and the matches against Manchester United and Everton that were tests, along with the games against the likes of Liverpool, where we got battered, these tests have highlighted where we've come unstuck. That we can play like this against your Burnleys, your Norwiches, your Watfords, your Newcastles, your Aston Villas prior to the sacking of Dean Smith, and you can get those results. But when it comes to, the trickier test, the trickier fixtures away from home at Everton, at Manchester United, at Anfield for Liverpool, that things do start to come unstuck. And I think that's why people certainly are starting to turn and starting to change. So I think that's probably where it is. Yes, as George says, people, if you haven't done so already, there's nearly 200 of you watching. Do drop a like on today's video. Would really appreciate the support. Apologies, by the way, this isn't being streamed live on Twitter. For some reason, Twitter's going weird with StreamYard. I've contacted StreamYard. They blame Twitter. I've contacted Twitter. They blame StreamYard. It's like when you're a kid and you go in to ask your parents for something. Your dad says, ask your mum says, ask your dad. And you're going around in circles. It's a childish political nightmare, except now we're in the world of social media. And for some reason, no one wants to give me the answers. So apologies that there's no streaming on Twitter at the moment. Hopefully we'll endeavour to get that back to you as soon as possible. But I have absolutely no control because it's all down to StreamYard and Twitter to sort out their differences. I just hope they aren't divorcing. Daniel Roberts says, question, is signing a world-class striker more important than signing a world-class midfielder? No. And the reason why it's not is because you can find clinical strikers. Strikers that are scorers of goals. It's their position, it's their job, it's how they've got to that stage of their career. If Arsenal can add a world-class central midfielder, which gives them more progression, which gives them more control, which gives them the ability to retain possession and recover possession and transition and progress and, just add to their attacking capabilities as well by unlocking those players in front and therefore, in turn, increasing chance creation of a higher quality, then you can have your Baloguns of this world playing up top. You can have your Aubameyangs of this world. If you give them enough chances, they will score. Aubameyang's never been he's been a prolific goal scorer, but he's not been a prolific clinical goal scorer. And Drew highlighted this the other day on Twitter. If you're not following him, @LogicLera, make sure you are. That even at Dortmund, Aubameyang wasn't, say, massively clinical. He scored lots of goals because Dortmund created lots of chances. And maybe that's where we need to look to, is that increasing the quality of chance creation for our strikers is going to increase the number of goals we score. But the problem is right now we are one of the lowest ranked sides in the league for chance creation, but we're also one of the lowest ranked sides for chance conversion. So of the few chances that we're creating, we're not scoring them. But the thing is, if you do increase that chance creation, you've got a much better chance of seeing a striker score many, many more goals. I know it sounds so simple and like I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but for me, Dan, it's the world-class midfielder that is more important for this Arsenal team. Arobos will eat you says, surely we need a midfielder just as much as a forward, if not for Kessié, if not for Sanchez. Have there been any other credible links so far? We've seen, obviously, Sanchez linked. We've seen Kessié linked. We've previously been linked to the likes of, I was going to say Yuri Tielemans, not Tielemans. Bruno Guimaraes, Yves Bissouma. Obviously, we've seen links to Ruben Neves in the summer. But as of right now, there hasn't been any. Dennis Zakaria is another name, but there hasn't been any genuine where you go, oh, okay, yeah, Arsenal are interested in so-and-so. The striking department, interestingly, looks to be the one where you'd see more tangible evidence of Arsenal's interest with Vlahovic, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, those two players in particular. Dusan Kulusevski as well, another player that looks to be much more heavily linked. But central midfield, weirdly quiet. Benji, yes, I did. Reece Nelson scored his first goal for final. Thank you for reminding me of that. I didn't include that in the show. Reece Nelson did indeed score his first goal for final last night, which is only going to do good things for his career and good things for his value. So that's a positive thing. Matt G says, Tom, would you take Ten Hag in the summer if it meant sacking Arteta now and having Mertesacker as a caretaker for the rest of the season? Look, I don't know, Matt. I really don't know. I don't know what that would do because I would worry that if Mertesacker was in charge, that he is even less experienced than Arteta, and we could fall out of Europe entirely once again. So I'm not sure, because it could mean we fall out of Europe. It could cost us everything this season. If you told me that we would be replacing Arteta with Ten Hag now, then yeah, sure. But that I'm not so sure about. I'm not so sure about that one. James Wright, it's a good question though, Matt. James Wright, I don't think DCL is worth 60 million plus. I'd rather take a risk at a higher potential striker like an Isaac. What are your thoughts? Look, you get what you kind of pay for in the Premier. You get what you kind of pay for on the continent typically. Within England and the Premier League, you don't. You overpay. That's how you get those players. Well, we had to pay £50 million for Ben White. That's why we had to pay £24 million for a perceived backup goalkeeper at the time, Aaron Ramsdale. It's obviously proven a lot of people, including myself, very, very wrong. I would go for Calvert-Lewin. I wouldn't have an issue about spending that amount of money. One, because I always say, it's not my money. Why would I really care? But I want us to invest better. I want us to invest properly. But I think also spending that type of money, bringing in a player like Calvert-Lewin it would raise confidence in the recruitment again. It's another position that that we want to see some heavy and marquee investment in. Isaac, if we were to sign him, I'd be very happy. Arsenal just need to make a good signing in the position. If it's Isaac, if it's Vlahovic, if it's Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'm happy. I just want to see a genuine push to find a very special forward in those positions in the summer. Yes, Mike, hit the like button ASAP, people. Come on, let's show that support in the chat box. Vishal says, as much as I like Davids and Vlahovic, I'd go for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's likely to hit the ground running more so than the others. The other two will need time to adapt. What are your thoughts? I agree. MCPE says, Tom, do you think we should go for a centre midfielder in Jan? Yes, I do. And potentially hold off on a striker until January. Until the summer, I think you mean. Or would you take a striker on loan in January? Look, I'd take someone on loan, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to sign a midfielder on loan. That's kind of the prediction that I've continued to say on the shows. That's where I see things happening. I'd be shocked if we signed a striker. I'd be buzzing if we did, but I just don't think that's going to happen. Do I think we should hold off? It depends on who's available. Don't go and get a plan D, E, F kind of striker. Get your plan A. If you can't get your plan A, go for your plan B. If you can't get your plan B, then wait. Usually your top two are going to be your best ones to go for. There's usually a good top two options. But beyond that, it's worth waiting. Absolutely worth waiting. De Jong as in Frankie De Jong, FE. I don't know if he is available. If he is, Arsenal should be all over that one. But I'm not sure. Barcelona, as we know, are struggling. Barcelona in the Europa League. That is glorious. It's absolutely glorious. Absolutely so. Satya Brat says, hi, Tom. Why do you think Partey has been so inconsistent? Is it simply a lack of minutes, injuries? The only great performance I remember him having is the United game last season. It was so excited. Look, I think the Spurs game earlier this season was another example of him being great. Thought he was fantastic in the North London derby this season. But you're right. He hasn't impressed. He hasn't done enough. I think injuries are definitely a factor. I think he hasn't adapted to the league very well. I think that's a big part of it. Someone tried to suggest to me that he moved for the money the other day, which I found really odd. Is he getting paid more? I think he is getting paid more, as you actually would if you moved at your mid to late 20s. He moved because he wanted to join Arsenal. I have no doubts about that. And I think he's a big liking of Arsenal. But I don't. It's really difficult because he's only played under this manager. So until we see him under a different coach, which there's no guarantee that we will, you can't really point the finger at Arteta yet because we don't have anything to compare. But there's the possibility that it could be down to Arteta. We'll wait and see. Effie, any player can flop. So we can say that every signing is a risk that we make. John, what happens when Arsenal have a fourth crisis during the season and they've already released all three kits by 2022, 2023? Panic, mate. Pure panic. Bin bags, I'm going to use them. We'll try and sell bin bags with holes cut in them if we can do that to try and, the PR brilliance of our team. Who was it who tweeted? I can't remember. Someone tweeted saying, was it FK? I can't remember who it was that tweeted, but someone said Arsenal was a clothing company of a footballing hobby. And I found that very funny. I thought that was pretty spot on. John T says, not really serious question, but do you know where I can watch the Arsene Wenger movie? I cannot get it here in South Africa. Not even in the torrent sites. Help a Gooner out. The only place I know that you can get it is on Amazon. So if you can't get it on Amazon, I don't know where to tell you to go and get it. Maybe someone in the chat box, though, can help you, Jonty. Wilson says, what on earth is going on with Arsenal in terms of transfers? We don't really know, mate. We're reporting on the news. We're reporting on the links. But in terms of genuine interest, it is looking very, very sparse. And we're only 21 days away from that window opening. Billy Ferraldi says, would you take Wijnaldum on a permanent? Could be our James Milner. I'd take him on a 6-month loan, but I'm not sure about a permanent signing. Inga says, if we are lucky and get a decent striker in January, he has some time to adapt the way to play in the Premier League. We know that foreign players need time. What are your thoughts? Well, some players do. You look at Bruno Fernandes, absolutely astonishing levels of performance from the moment he arrived in the Premier League. You look at other players that have joined the Premier League and done really, really well. N'Golo Kante when he arrived from France. You think to Chelsea signings, Jorginho coming from Italy, transitioned immediately. Some players just don't need time to adapt. It's not always, but it's always going to be a risk when you sign someone from another league because there is a very different environment, a different speed, a different style, and different coaching and different opposition. So you're always going to get that. Andy says, Tom, I saw a Szoboszlai rumor today. Don't do that to me. Let me just type in our man and saviour, Szoboszlai. Oh, here we go. It's literally the first one. Arsenal are prepared to sanction a €40 million bid for Dominik Szoboszlai, though RB Leipzig won't part with the Hungarian talisman without a fight, per a report. What report? I'm reading, I'm scanning. Citing Spanish outlet Todo Viajes. Now, this is always something that I'm a little bit wary of. When the outlet that's reporting it is not either based in the nation of the club or is not of the nation of the player or the club, that's a concern. So when a Spanish outlet is reporting on an English club interested in a Hungarian player who plays for a German team, I have my doubts. Quite rightly, I feel about that one. 40 million euros, yeah, absolutely, go for it, do it. He's amazing, but he's not the position that we're desperately after. All right, even I can say that with my waving my Szoboszlai fan club hat. I just look, he's not the position that we need right now, Andy, and so therefore it doesn't make too much sense. Let's go to John, who says, serious question. Does the existence of the documentary for this season actually increase the chances we make a splash in the transfer market to make more of a positive story when things go bad? John, I seriously cannot answer that question. I don't really know. There's no way of me knowing if it will. I suppose we'll have to wait and see and then watch it. But I remember watching the Manchester City one when they signed Aymeric Laporte in January. It was very interesting seeing kind of behind the scenes. But I would be surprised if it does have an impact. But I'm a very naive guy, so maybe it will. Harry says, would it be possible for us to get the likes of Milinkovic-Savic with a massive transfer fee, Harry? Possibly. Iwak says, we need another midfielder that can bring the ball forward in a different way from Partey, preferably a good dribbler on the ball with tight control and a nice first touch. Fabian Ruiz, anyone? Matt G says, I don't believe it. Bet that's the same source who said we were selling. Who said that? I certainly didn't. That's for sure. I certainly didn't. And I mean that very seriously. The robots will eat you. Why Wijnaldum? We've already gone down this path of getting older players, huge wages, and then they turn out to be really poor. Ozil, Aubameyang, Wijnaldum. I think a 6-month loan is fine, just to cover that area, especially when you're losing Partey and El Neni. But I agree with you. I wouldn't be signing him on a permanent deal. Maddison can be our Bruno. I just don't think that the number 10 position is a position we're going to be spending big for. And I don't think Maddison's had the best of seasons either. Alistair says, Tom, how much for Aubameyang and Martinelli together? Surely around 40 million for both. What do you mean, Alistair? What, selling Martinelli and Aubameyang? I wouldn't be selling. I wouldn't be selling Martinelli, that's for sure. But Aubameyang, I doubt you'll get a tenner at the moment. Mitchell says, I don't believe it. It's Pepe Gate with Tom all over again. Oh, dearie me, that Pepe thing. Jesus, it was a really eye-opening moment there. Asbrom says, Tom, do you think we missed the boat on? Yes, absolutely. We were strongly linked, and he's been told he is not established yet. Instead, we bring in Erdegaard. Plus, we do not lose. We do not have to target Pedro Gonçalves. Hey, look, Szoboszlai is not an out-and-out number 10. He never has been an out-and-out number 10, really. He has played behind the striker, but he is better off playing on the left flank. Like, he plays on the left-hand side. He plays, ironically, a very similar way to what we would describe as an attacking midfielder like Emile Smith-Rowe on the left-hand side. That's his best role. He loves to cut in on that right foot. He's got an amazing strike of the ball, brilliant set-piece taker, tall, fast, quick, strong, really technical. He's great. If we had any intentions of moving Smith Rowe back to the number 10 position, then yeah, absolutely go for it. But right now, you know, he's not a priority, and that position's not a priority. I'd love him. Don't get me wrong. I've got a shirt with his name on the back, for goodness sake. Like, I love the guy, but I just don't quite see it happening. Raf says, I think as Arsenal fans, we never support players. Partey seems to be next. Why don't we try getting behind the players? I think Raf, I always kind of support Partey. I'd wanted him to sign for many, many years, and I was absolutely over the moon when we did. And I've given a lot of reasons as to why I feel like he's not necessarily working. What I would say is just saying maybe that take him out for a game, try something different. I don't think that's not necessarily not supporting the player. I just think that's being a little bit more reasonable about what the situation is, and maybe you think about what's best for the player in the current moment. Maybe taking them out for a game is probably what's best for the player. Frederick says, where do we go from here? We can still finish in the top four, but the team is shaky and leaky. We have to win the next game. It's as simple as that. You just got to win the next match. Thoughts on Ben Brereton Diaz? Who is that? I don't know. I don't know who Ben Brereton Diaz is. He is. I swear, Jonathan, it's always you that throws in these players that I don't know of. He plays for Blackburn as a centre forward. He has scored 17 goals in 21 games. And he is 22 years of age. I mean, yeah, he looks very, very good, to be fair. Definitely not gone on my radar, but 17 goals, 21 games. Ivan Toney levels of goal scoring in the Championship. Is he someone that we should be looking at? Oh, is he that English-Chilean guy? Yes, he is. I know who he is. Yes, I have heard of him, actually. There you go. Yes, I remember seeing things pop on my social feeds about him. Should we go for him? I mean, I don't know how much he'd be worth. He's worth £9 million, according to Transfermarkt, although I feel like Blackburn would ask for significantly more. So there you go. Not specifically you, says Raf. I just mean the fan base in general. I agree with you in that you can take him out of the firing line, but just a sense of things at Arsenal. The Erdegaard situation frustrates me so much. The Erdegaard is utterly scapegoated by those that have wanted to bash Arteta for a long time. And because he's the only kind of signing of the six that Arteta and Edu made in the summer that's not necessarily performed to the level of the others, or saying that, he's been our best player in the last game. And I mean, he was scored against United, scored against Everton, would have got another goal against Watford, scored against Burnley. He has got goals in him. He needs to add more assists to his game. But look, the fan base have absolutely, portions of the fan base have absolutely scapegoated Erdegaard so annoyingly. It is what it is. A lot of people wanted Maddison. If you don't get what you want, don't cry about it and take it out on the players that came instead. We didn't sign Szoboszlai. You don't see me moaning about Erdegaard. Like, I wanted other players. We didn't get those other players. And I'm not going to necessarily scapegoat certain players because I didn't get the player that I wanted. Everyone's got to take their fair shot. Everyone gets their fair rack. We allowed Pepe his time. It's been a long time since we've signed him now, and he's not yet justified that signature. I'm not talking about the fee. I'm talking about the actual signature. And other players, Aubameyang is falling away. Lacazette has never really justified that 50 million price tag we paid for him. Ben White, I think, is going to have to do a lot more still to justify that 50 million pound price tag and to justify signing him. Gabriel's doing a great job. Rams is doing a great job. Tomiyasu is doing a great job. Tavares is doing a great job. Lokonga is doing an amazing job. Partey still needs to do more to justify his price tag. But you don't want to scapegoat players. Like, it's just ridiculous how people just just build up those specific kind of dislikes immediately for certain players just because they weren't the player that they wanted us to sign. And so no matter what they do, they have to criticize, they have to judge them, and they can never praise them. And it's just a really silly place to put yourself to be in, because you can end up making yourself look very, very silly. So there you go. We are going to finish things off there. We've just been going for 30 minutes. Sorry I didn't get to answer all of your questions. I tried to go through as many as I possibly can. I will be back tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. as always, to bring you the next installment of the show. Of course, tomorrow we will be playing against Southampton. I'm working from 1 until 9. So there'll be a 9 o'clock Raw Reaction show in the evening tomorrow. I'll tell you more about that. But do join me in 2.5 hours' time, and where I'll be joined by James Mayer TV to talk about the managerial situation a bit more, and of course some of the player situations too, like Partey and Ødegaard. And then I'll be joined by Kev from Next Generation Arsenal this evening to talk about the struggles of the Arsenal youth team as well. Stay well, people. Have a fantastic day. Drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and as always, up the Arsenal.